Welcome back to A Little Bit of Cheese, your bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast. Welcome back to a Friday show here. I'm your host, Cody Depius. Thank you for being here with us once again, as we got a whole lot of stuff to get into before this busy weekend. This might be one of the busiest Fridays I can remember, but we'll start at the top, the game that everybody's all excited about. Packers going to be at Lambeau on Sunday, ready to take on the San Francisco 49ers. 3:25 kickoff there. Green Bay is given a 61% chance to win. Now, Green Bay sitting at 7-3 so far this year. It feels like an underwhelming 7-3. Sam and I talked a little bit about that on Monday. This is a team that has not played as well as you could imagine for a 7-3 team. They should have lost last week. It was a literal fingertip that they were able to beat the Bears by. They've had to win a couple of games due to a game-winning field goal. There's just been a whole lot of stuff where I think you can almost be optimistic about it because Jordan Love has been hurt really for 2.5 of these games, and Green Bay is still 7-3 and right there. And I know on Monday my headline prediction was that Purdy was going to tear him up and that Christian McCaffrey was going to have a good game and that Green Bay wouldn't stand much of a chance here, but now you got to take injuries into consideration. There's a whole lot for both teams, but I'll kind of look at the Green Bay side first. Edgerrin Cooper suffered a hamstring injury, I believe, on Wednesday practice, was not able to practice Thursday. He's going to be out for Sunday, and that's a really big loss when you look at the San Francisco team, what they have with Christian McCaffrey. He's probably the best running back in the NFL, 100% healthy. He can run between the tackles, outside, one of the best pass-catching running backs I've seen in my life. They're going to need linebacker play out of Green Bay for them to stand a chance in this game. And the way Quay Walker's been playing recently hasn't been up to the standard where you can expect him to stop a Christian McCaffrey. Edgerrin Cooper would have helped a little bit more in this situation, but he's going to be out. So that's going to be a really big loss for the Green Bay defense. But I think the biggest loss, and the one that we've been talking about over the course of the year as well, Jaire Alexander is questionable, but I would say he's pretty doubtful when it comes to Sunday. It was revealed this week that he has a torn PCL, one of those ligaments in your knee. Not as serious as an ACL or an MCL, but one of those where it definitely takes time to heal and recover from it. And there's a little bit of flack towards Green Bay when it comes to this injury because a couple of weeks ago when he had to miss against Detroit, they knew that he was dealing with problems there. They knew what was going on. They just called it a knee issue. They brought him back last week against Chicago. He was only able to get 10 plays on it before he essentially had to take himself out of the game because he knew something was wrong. He re-aggravated that injury, and now there is no timetable for his return. So that is a huge loss for this Green Bay defense. And I kind of said it with Sam, but Green Bay's, in my mind at least, until something happens drastically here, Green Bay does not have a Super Bowl chance without a Jaire Alexander on this defense. You need to have guys step up that have not been there this season. That cornerback room, we knew it was going to be a little bit thinner than what we were hoping for going into this year, where Eric Stokes is expected to be a number 2 corner. He right now is maybe a good team's 4th cornerback. He's not a good starting quarterback. Carrington Valentine, we expected a lot more progression out of him last year, being a late-round draft pick. Had a really solid rookie campaign, looked solid at the end of last year. Has just not been that guy. He wasn't even playing until just a couple of weeks ago because Green Bay's coaching staff didn't trust him. And now they, regardless of if they trust him or not, they have to throw him out there. He hasn't lived up to it. Keyshawn Nixon, a guy who I think has overperformed, essentially. He's not someone you want starting at an outside cornerback position. They're just really thin. Without Jaire, you've seen it against Detroit. You saw it against Chicago. These guys can't cover a number 1 on the outside. And that you can't win a Super Bowl if you're not able to cover a number 1. They can get torched. And the linebacker play has just been poor. Last week was really bad, even for Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker as well. These guys have got to step up for this defense to stand a chance. And I don't really want to put any of this fault on Hafley. I think a lot of this has to go to the personnel and the development of these defensive players. And this isn't a the world is crumbling down kind of conversation I'm having with you. This is a I had so high expectations for this Green Bay team that they should have improved more on the defensive side of the ball, and they would have had an actual real chance to go win a Super Bowl. And I'm not telling you that chance is out the window, but there are guys on this roster that have to step up, and it goes to the pass rush too. Honestly, everybody except for the safeties. Evan Williams and Xavier McKinney and Javon Bullard at times, 2 thumbs up. You're doing your job. Keep killing it back there, guys. You're really being the anchors of this defense because your 3 levels at cornerback, linebacker, and defensive line have just underperformed. There are so many guys that you can call out on that defensive line as well that just have not progressed or have regressed for that instance. So you have to see improvement. These guys have to step up. And I think they could even win this Sunday game. And a lot of this has to go to what I'm about to talk to next. San Francisco is pretty banged up. A lot of their superstars are hurt. Brandon Ayuk, of course, is out. Ricky Pearsall is back. He's a rookie receiver who I think is pretty talented and might cause Green Bay some problems on Sunday, so watch out for him. But with McCaffrey being back, a team with McCaffrey can really beat anybody except for maybe the Carolina Panthers when he goes back there. But coming back to San Francisco, Brock Purdy, he has a shoulder injury. He's questionable. It sounds like he was able to do a little bit more yesterday than they were expecting him to in practice, but he's dealing with a shoulder injury on his throwing shoulder, and they're listing him as questionable at this point, which for San Francisco, and we can go back to before week 1, we know if they say he's questionable, he could actually be 100% out for 10 weeks like Christian McCaffrey was. Sorry, I'm just a frustrated Christian McCaffrey owner because I drafted him number 1 overall and haven't been able to put him in my lineup until just a couple of weeks ago. But Brock Purdy could be more hurt than we think. He could be out for this game, but what they have him listed at right now is questionable, and they say they are not sure either way if Brock Purdy is going to play. I look at Brock Purdy as a very solid, capable NFL quarterback. I don't think he's someone who moves the needle. I don't think he's a superstar, but I think he's pretty darn good. And we saw it last year. This guy can win a Super Bowl. He is one of those top guys that can do it. Like just that threshold between really good and superstar. That's where I see Brock Purdy. Nick Bosa, he's dealing with a hip injury. He is also questionable. And Trent Williams, he's been dealing with some stuff as well. So Nick Bosa, probably one of the best defensive ends in football. And Trent Williams, probably the best left tackle when healthy in football. All those guys are questionable. And with Greg Kittle, their tight end, I think he's listed at questionable at this point. I imagine he's going to play. He's been limited in practice so far this week. But this is a team, you can look at the injury list. They got a lot of guys on there, and these aren't your second, third level guys. These are the superstars of the San Francisco 49ers that helped them be the San Francisco 49ers of the past 5 years. Like the superstars of this team. They're a little bit banged up, but they have a really good coach in Shanahan, and the expectations here, without Edgerrin Cooper to help Quay at linebacker, and without Jair Alexander, I think this is a real toss-up. I want to see Jordan Love have a clean game. I think that is step number 1. Get rid of that dummy throw, whether it be physical or mental. That is the first thing that I want to see watching this game. Can Jordan Love continue to improve? Because Green Bay also does not have a Super Bowl chance if he plays the way that he has played up to this point this year. He has not looked that comfortable. The throws haven't been like the mind-blowing throws that we saw in the second half last year, and the consistency just hasn't been there. Be consistent for an entire game. I think he had a really good game last week against Chicago. He just had that dummy throw. Please get rid of that dummy throw, Jordan, and I think Green Bay has a chance to beat anybody. But then you got to look at the defensive side of the ball. You got to have these guys step up. So with all the injuries here for San Francisco, I'd say if Purdy plays, I think San Francisco should win this game. If he doesn't, and vice versa. So I think this is really a toss-up, and it depends on the health of both of these teams. And San Francisco, I will also say they've been underperforming a lot this year. They lost to a Seattle team last week that they should not have any business losing to, but they're banged up, and things have just been weird. They've looked old, they've looked slow, and they've lost me a lot of pick'em games because I thought they were a lot better than they are. And I think that's been the case widespread over the league. Like San Francisco, it's a Super Bowl team last year that might not even make the playoffs this year. That NFC West is really funky. And San Francisco, they really need to win this game. So regardless, they are going to come into this hungry. They're going to want to steal one from Green Bay and Lambeau. And LaFleur, Love, and the boys, they better be ready for it. And I mean, worst case scenario, if Green Bay loses, whatever. Like, I mean, you go to 7-4. Like, you can go into the playoffs at 10-7 and make something happen. Or even last year, they did it at 9-8. So this is not a win or die kind of game, but be on your seat. Be ready. I mean, be on your toes. Excuse me. Don't be on your seat. That'd be a little bit weird. Be on your toes. Be ready. A winnable game. Go out and do it. San Francisco is going to be hungry, and you got to stop them. Another fun game coming up tomorrow, college football. The Wisconsin Badgers, now without Phil Longo as the offensive coordinator. They're going to Nebraska to take on the also 5-5 Nebraska Cornhuskers. This is the battle for the Freedom Trophy, where Wisconsin has won the Freedom Trophy each of the last 10 years. This just feels like one of those games where they could lose it or they could really blow them out. I think I'm going to lean more to Wisconsin coming out and being a little bit more fired up and having some energy going into this game. Nebraska, they started off pretty hot this year. They have a hotshot freshman quarterback who plays and thinks he's Patrick Mahomes. He started off really hot and just hasn't been. Out of the last 5 games that he has played, he's had one of them with over 200 passing yards. And Wisconsin's defense played really, really well against Oregon. And you fix a couple of things on offense, Wisconsin should have beat the number 1 team in the country last week. And it all came down to the offensive scheming. So now you get a couple of different ideas. Luke Fickell said he isn't sure exactly. Like, I think he knows who's going to be doing the play calling, but he did not give a definitive answer. He didn't go and say, oh, this guy on our sideline, yeah, he's got all the play calling duties. It sounds like it's going to be play calling by committee, which I think is a beneficial thing for this Wisconsin team. I think Phil Longo, and the biggest problems that he had this year was the fact that he did not create the system around Braden Locke's capabilities. Those throws to the outside, Locke, just some of them he's not capable of throwing, but Phil Longo didn't care. It's part of his system, and he wanted to run it the way he wanted to. But Braden Locke is a backup quarterback who doesn't look like he should be in Division I at times. You have to cater the offense to him and to make that thing just move, to go down and score points. They should have beat Oregon last week. They just needed to have a sliver of competency on offense, but they didn't. And that's why Phil Longo no longer has a job. And I think having multiple people go in, these guys have worked with Braden Locke the last couple of years, like Longo did, but I think Longo just kind of looked at his system and kept it as his system. And I think him just staying so narrow-minded is essentially what ran him out of Madison. And having different guys in there now, I think I have higher hopes for this offense. They're not super high because I don't think the talent is all the way there, but I could see them putting up 28 points and beating a Nebraska team that they should and taking home the Freedom Trophy for the 11th straight season. Now, don't blow it. And they have to keep that bowl streak alive. This is one of those kind of must-win games. You have to split, essentially, between this week and next week. And next week, they take on Minnesota. And I think that'll be a tough, hard-fought game as well. These are 2 games where going in, you feel like Wisconsin should have a pretty good shot to win both of them. And I'm just not sure on either of them. So first things first, go out, beat Nebraska at Nebraska, get that 11th straight win, and essentially clinch a bowl spot. You got to keep the bowl game streak alive. They had that long streak, and I know this goes back for basketball too, but I think it was a streak, and I'm sorry I don't have the exact number on me. You can go and look at it yourself. But they had a streak of, I think, over 20 years where both the football program made a bowl game and the basketball program made the NCAA tournament. And, of course, that was broke a couple of years ago when the Badgers had to play in the NIT. But I think they were the longest holding streak in Division I college sports at that time, like overall. Like it was an incredible streak. And Wisconsin's got a pretty awesome bowl streak going on for football right now, and it is kind of at jeopardy. And if you've looked at next year's schedule, you understand where it's kind of crucial to really keep it going this year, because next year is not a guarantee at all. And I'll just put it this way, that schedule next year for the Wisconsin Badgers, straight out of hell. It's going to be tough. It is going to be a gauntlet. As rough as we thought it was this year for Wisconsin, next year is going to be worse. It will be. Unless you see drastic changes in the program, which would be awesome, and I would love to welcome them with open arms, but you can't always expect progression. But Wisconsin at Nebraska, Freedom Trophy fight tomorrow. I'll quickly mention Badger basketball. I kind of just did a little bit ago, but they are ranked 19th in the country now after winning against Arizona last week. They almost lost a tough game to, I don't want to mess it up, I think it's UTRGV, University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. They almost lost the game to them this week. We call them an acronym school. But Wisconsin was able to pull that out. They are undefeated so far this year, 5-0. They'll be at UCF today. That game actually starting in just a little bit here. So by the time you watch or listen to this podcast, that game will probably be done. But UCF is 4-0 this year. Probably shouldn't be that easy of a game, especially considering Wisconsin played UTRGV very, very competitively. Probably too competitively in the point where Wisconsin should have blown them out, but they didn't. And then tomorrow, the Badgers will be at home against Chicago State. They should win that one pretty easily. Badger basketball, 2 games, always something to watch. Sticking on the basketball route, the Indiana Pacers, who are 6-9, will be at the Bucks today to play for the first game of the NBA Cup group play. And this is a Pacers team. Sam mentioned it before. Kind of a rivalry brewing between these two squads. Both teams are 6-9 right now. Both teams are underperforming. The Pacers last year were able to beat the Bucks for the NBA Cup, and they were able to beat the Bucks in the playoffs. So rivalry is brewing there, and I don't know, should be an exciting, fun game where the Bucks are 4-1 in their last 5. If you ask Doc Rivers, he'll tell you, and I agree with him, that they're 5-0 in their last 5. Really bad officiating call in the game against the Hornets recently, and that kind of leads into the storyline coming up for tomorrow, as the 6-9 Hornets will be at Milwaukee to take on the Bucks, and the Bucks will be seeking revenge. So a whole lot of 6-9 teams. You got the 6-9 Pacers, the 6-9 Bucks, and the 6-9 Hornets, kind of being that whole gauntlet of just below mediocrity going on this weekend. Oh, hi, Siri. Thanks for letting me know that the Pacers are an NBA team. But yeah, Bucks got 2 games coming on. And then some more news. This is kind of just a little side news. But the Brewers, their first free agent signing of the year. I actually don't even know if it counted as a free agent. But the Brewers have signed Eric Haas, backup catcher, for a 1-year contract in 30 games this year. He had 273 and 819 OPS. He'll be 32 years old next year. I think this is a pretty good signing for Milwaukee, considering what he was able to do last year. Those are really, really good offensive numbers for a backup catcher, and those are usually more touted to be better defenders, but he was there. I think he's a leader. I think he calls pitches and is a really good defender as well. And there's an absence because Gary Sanchez is leaving the team due to free agency. So it was good to retain a guy who had been in that clubhouse. I think he's a good guy to have in that clubhouse, and he performed really well on the field. So I wouldn't expect those numbers that you saw last year to carry into next year, but they always could. I mean, he was a monster in spring training and then was in AAA because Contreras and Gary Sanchez were the 2 catchers up on the roster, but then Sanchez, of course, got hurt. They brought up Haas. He played really well and said, well, we can't send him down. We need to keep Sanchez up. So then they had 3 catchers on the roster, essentially, and that was all because Eric Haas outperformed expectations. He is a good backup catcher, and we're excited to see him back in Milwaukee. So the overall theme for this Friday show, if you're bored this weekend, there's always something to watch on TV. I'll start it off from tonight. Oh, I don't even have this lined out in the schedule. But the Packers play on Sunday. Badgers football plays tomorrow. Badgers basketball plays Friday night and Saturday. The Bucks play tonight and tomorrow. So always something going on. Should be an exciting weekend for Wisconsin sports. Sam will be back with me on Monday as we'll go over all the reactions from all the great sports going on this weekend. I'm Cody Depius. I want to thank you for being here with us once again today, as this has been another edition of A Little Bit of Cheese, your bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast.